what should be the mindset be when we are doing budgeting as a Catholic, as a Christian, or as anyone who is thinking about budgeting?
See, budgeting is spiritual, right? Especially in Luke 16:11. Again, it reminds us that money is a test for eternal life. So the first thing is that why are we even doing this entire exercise? Is it to make more money so that we get more money and become richer? No, that is not the goal of doing this entire exercise. The goal of this entire exercise is your heart, right? Is your heart set on God? Is your heart set on giving Him His due? And is your heart set on really prioritizing Him? So that is the first thing. The second thing is your first fruits, what we spoke about, right? Yeah. That should be another attitude. So when you're doing your budgeting, you should also look at your tithe, your money to God, and you should ensure that it is your first fruit out of your harvest. And the last thing, the third point which I can talk about, is that when you're doing your budgeting, first look at your needs and then wants. We'll come to that a little later. But that is a priority that we follow. And that's the order that every Catholic should follow when they are planning their budget.
Right. Can you tell me the difference between, you spoke about needs and wants. Can you tell me the difference between what should a need be and what should a want be? Because sometimes people interchange that and say, oh, I need this. That's like, when it's actually like a want. So can you give me some examples of what a need and a want looks like?
Let's illustrate it, say, with a very simple story.
Okay.
So there is this person, and they're doing budgeting. They budget for their rent. They budget for some medicinal expenses. They budget for their home loan EMI. Very importantly, they budget also for their tithes. Now, the first set of items are items which they need, right? You need to pay your EMI. You need to buy your food. These are essential items. And then while the person is going further, they say, okay, I am also going to go to Starbucks and I need to upgrade this mobile phone of mine. Or I need to buy this bag, even though, I have bags. My mobile phone is perfectly functioning. So that's something which is a want. So a need is something you can't do without.
Correct.
A want is something which is optional.
Yes, I agree with that. Keep it very simple. What do we need? We need food, clothing, shelter, right? And so that is a basic need. But what is a want? A want is to take it further, to make life a little more comfortable, to make the food a little more tastier. So a simple example is, let's look at the need of hunger, So if you're hungry, you have two options. One is you can go buy the vegetables, you can cut up the vegetables, boil it, do all of that and eat a very nutritious meal. So that's a need. The second option, just open your phone and Swiggy something, right? So that is a want. So need is something that fulfills these basic requirements of food, of clothing and shelter. And a want is something that makes things a little more comfortable to upgrade yourself.
What if, so you talk about clothing, what if I have, what if my need is, I need clothing and I have like a 10,000 rupee t-shirt to buy? Do you think that becomes a need?
So what do you need your t-shirt for? To cover yourself, right?
Yeah.
So that is the basic need. But a want is something to make it more comfortable, to upgrade it.
Yeah. Again, I think prudence comes in play here. Right. Like, okay, you need a t-shirt. Does it need to be 10,000 rupees? Like, I'm exaggerating, okay? I don't think anyone makes t-shirts, for guys at least, which is 10,000 rupees. I'm just like very bad at exaggerating. So, I'm sorry, I'm very good at exaggerating. In a practical way, can you tell me, like, monthly budget when we do, what percentage should we be considering dedicating to God? Some people say, like some families say that we cannot afford a tithe. Okay, that's something that they say, oh, I don't think I have enough money for the tithe. What do you think we can do? Where can we start? Like, small. Can we start small, or do we have to pay 10% or whatever the amount is?
So 10% is what is given in the Bible.
Yeah.
But that's a tithe, right? 1/10. But the church never says that you have to give 1/10 to the T, so to say. But what it means is that you have to give some portion to God, right? So a good way to start is, if possible, you can give 10%.
Yeah.
But what if you can't, right? What if you can't? What if you give only? What if someone is told you to give 10%, but you tell that person and you justify with them that, see, for now I cannot give. I'm just giving 2%. You can justify. You can do whatever you want. But what matters is your heart.
Correct.
That's
right?
correct.
So God will look at your heart. God won't look at all your excuses. So you need to give you need to give what you can give, right? It doesn't matter that God gets 10% or 20% or 40% or 5%, because God has everything. God has 100%. But coming back to our need for tithe, right? It is to show God that, God, I acknowledge that you are the owner, and God, without this, by giving you this, I will survive. So it is looking at your heart. So a good way to start is giving 10%. But if you really can't afford, you have to give as much as possible, and God will know whether that is as much as possible, because
Possible or no.
you don't have to justify with anyone.
true.
When I was working in Bangalore, I had a friend who was earning very less. He just moved to Bangalore and he just started off. So, but what he did, he gave his first fruit. When his salary came in, he gave his first fruit and he gave 10%. Okay, so that is what he did. But come the end of the month, almost the last week of the month, he actually didn't have money for his needs, But what he would do, he would be faithful with his tithe. He would buy biscuits, the Parle-G biscuits, which he sometimes gives dogs. He would eat that, he would sacrifice that.
Yeah, that's quite a...
Yes, but what he did by doing that, he did that, and nothing happened. That's how he used to live. But today, he has risen up the ranks, and he is a VP at one of the investment banks. So it is not that you start giving money so that you become a VP.
Yeah, I mean,
God looks at your heart.
Correct. Like, I think people should not take it as like an example where it's like, oh, if I keep giving my tithes, then one day I'll be a VP.
Yes,
I'll have to. I mean, at the end of the day, God looks at your heart, and of course, God will bless you. Blessings will follow. But that does not mean that I'm doing this. I think, again, coming back to the heart, of why am I doing this? Am I doing this so that God will give me more money in the future?
Exactly.
And sometimes it seems like tithe becomes like, oh, God, I paid you 10%, no, just give me 110% back. Like, it's like investing. I don't think it's investing, right?
No, it's not.
I think it's a misconception, that if I give tithes, God is going to repay me financially, because it's just not from the financial aspect that the Lord might or may not give you. It could also be from mental peace. It could be from having a very loving family. It could be from so many non-tangible things which are not directly related to finance. So I believe when you're honest in your tithing, the Lord repays you not just financially, but He can repay you through so many other means. Being in business, when I started giving tithing, yes, there were some incidences where I've seen, the Lord's hand, and I used to tell people, there are certain occasions where I used to give a check for a tithe and an outstanding payment of a similar amount would come. So I would say that the Lord, has made provisions. And there was times where that did happen, but then, the stress which I used to undergo of a client pending payment which was not coming, the Lord kind of helped me rest my thoughts. He helped me calm my heart. He helped me calm my mind. So while financially nothing happened, but mentally, emotionally, the Lord took care of me. And when He took care of me in those, I was also able to take care of the people who are with me. So it's not something like an investment, no? Like I'll put in this mutual fund, fixed deposit, and I'm going to get returns. No, it could extend to any sphere of your life. It's just about that growing in generosity, going back to stewardship again, being a good steward and growing slowly. And if somebody doesn't have something, a lot of people say, when I become rich, I will give. When I have a lot of money, I will donate to the poor. Right. I'd like to go to what Mother Teresa says. No, she said, if you can't feed 100 people, feed one person.
Yeah. I think, wow.
But coming back to the same thing of this person who gave, God looks at your heart. But there's one verse in the Bible from Malachi. It says, you give me, and it says, test me in this. In the Bible, if you see, God never says test me, He said never put the Lord to the test, it's
Absolutely.
and many places say never test the Lord, right? But in this one verse, the only verse in the Bible where God says, put me to the test me in this, give me the money and test me if I will not open the floodgates of heaven.
Correct.
So imagine the amount of blessing that God has. So whenever you give her money, you can actually put this verse, you can give it and say this verse. But then again, you should not give this money because of the verse, right? Correct. God will definitely open the floodgates and give you the money, but He's also have one eye on your heart, right? If you are giving the money truly because this money is actually God's, then God will really open the floodgates and you will see immense blessing, just like how my friend received the blessing.